Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. How are you, dear students? I hope everyone is fine and okay. Today we are going to study one of the most important topic of biology lesson, that is types of reactions. First of all, we are coming that how many types of reactions do we have? We have three types of reactions. The first one is hydrolysis, and the second one is dehydration, and the third one is transphosphorylation reaction. These are the types of reactions in our today's lesson. First of all, we are coming to the hydrolysis. Hydro, what does hydro mean? Hydro means water, and lysis means to separate. So this is the reaction in which we can separate a large compound or large molecule into its components. So we have the definition of hydrolysis. What is happening in the hydrolysis? Water molecules are added in catabolic reactions. We have studied the catabolism or catabolic reactions in the previous lessons. So we can say water molecules are added. In which type of reactions? In catabolic reaction. Thus reactions are called hydrolysis. We have the example. For example, maltose we have here. What is maltose? Maltose is a type of disaccharide, type of carbohydrate and disaccharide. The maltose is made up from two glucose molecules or two monomers. Those are glucoses. So maltose, now we want to make its components, and we want to take the components from the maltose. We have to add water. We are adding water with the maltose. After that we can get two glucose molecules. So this type of reaction we can say it is hydrolysis. Before I mentioned that hydro means water and lysis means to separate. What are we doing? We are separating a large molecule with the help of water. Now the water is destroying or splitting this maltose into its components. So these types of reactions are called hydrolysis. And second type of reaction which we have in our lesson, that is dehydration reaction. What are the dehydration reaction? Water molecules remove in anabolic reactions. It is the inverse state of the hydrolysis. So in hydrolysis we are adding the water molecules, but in dehydration reactions we are removing what? The water molecules. We are removing the water molecules from the reaction. So these types of reactions are dehydration reactions. So water molecules are removed, or water molecules remove in anabolic reaction. Thus reactions are called dehydration, synthesis, or dehydration reaction. This is the example of dehydration reaction. Inverse of hydrolysis. It is the inverse of hydrolysis. What are we doing? We are combining two monomers or small molecules. When we combine them, we can get a large molecule. That is maltose, disaccharide. Maltose, it is the large molecule. So in this reaction, we combined the two glucoses and got one maltose. After the maltose, we can get what? Water. When the water is removed from a reaction, this type of reaction is called, or these types of reactions are called dehydration reactions. And the third type of reaction, that is transphosphorylation reaction. What is happening in these reactions? ATP we have here. What is ATP? ATP is a type of chemical energy. So ATP is produced from ADP. ATP is produced from ATP, ADP, and phosphate. Two components we have, or two parts, or two things we have in ATP. What are they? The first one is ADP, and the second one is phosphorus or phosphate, we can say. Now if we want to make an ATP, we have to combine ADP and phosphate. Okay, what is ATP? ATP, A means adenosine, T means tri means 3, P means phosphate. Now how can we produce or how can we make the ATP? So the ATP is produced from ADP. What is ADP? ADP, adenosine diphosphate. Di means 2. Now what do we have here? We have 2 phosphate. When we combine another phosphate with these 2 phosphates, we can get 3 phosphates. And 3 phosphates are combining with adenosine. After that, we can get what? A triphosphate molecule, that is adenosine triphosphate or ATP. So ATP is produced from ADP and phosphate. And also ATP is split into, if we want to split it, we can split it into ADP and phosphate group. By which method? By which reaction? By transphosphorylation reaction. Trans means transportation, and phosphorylation, we have the phosphate or phosphorus, which is in the form of transferring, going from ATP to ADP and again from ADP to ATP. So these types of reactions, we can say they are called transphosphorylation reactions. So these are the 3 types of chemical reactions which we are studying in our biochemistry lesson or cell biology. Now we are coming to another issue, that is activation energy. What is activation energy? We can say some chemical energy which is important or necessary for chemical reactions. So all chemical reactions need to a minimum energy to start reaction. This minimum energy called activation energy. I will give you an example. For example, we wanted to start our car. The car must be started with a key. So for starting the car, we need some electric. This electric is coming from the battery of the car. It is going to where? To the engine of the car. Now, if we don't have the battery in the car, our car cannot be started. For starting the car, we have to a battery. We must have a battery. In that case, the battery can start the engine, and after that, the fuel is coming to the engine and engine is going on to be started. So now, here, what do we have here? We have activation energy. The energy which is coming from the battery, this energy is the activation energy. If we don't have the battery, we cannot activate our car. For starting our car, we must have the battery or the activation energy. For chemical reactions, we need to a minimum energy to start the reaction. Like the car. To start the car, we must have the battery. Now, if we want to start a chemical reaction, there must be some energy. This energy is called, which type of energy? Activation energy. This minimum energy is called activation energy. Some substances can decrease this activation energy and accelerate the reactions. Those materials are called enzymes or catalysts. Catalysts or enzymes are those materials which can decrease the activation energy, store the activation energy, and accelerate these chemical reactions. These materials are called enzymes. Now we are coming to the ATP. That what is ATP and ITP is which type of energy? ATP is a type of chemical energy. Which type of energy? Chemical energy. ATP is released in the cellular respiration. We have studied in the previous lessons the photosynthesis. In photosynthesis, we had the light energy. The light energy is coming from the sun, and after that it is converting in chloroplast of the plant cells and converting to which type of energy? To chemical energy. and it is stored in the foods. When we eat foods, this energy is going to our cells. In cells, we have cellular respiration. At the end of the cellular respiration relays the ATP energy from the foods which we eat. Now, ATP is a type of chemical energy. It is released during the cellular respiration. When it is releasing? During the cellular respiration. Not used directly. We cannot use it directly. There are some activities in our body or in our cells. For those activities, the ATP can be used, but directly we cannot use the ATP energy. So it is in first package is adenosine triphosphate. When the energy is made, and after that there is a process. In this process, the ATP energy is going to be packed. So this first package of the ATP is named as, or this chemical energy is named as adenosine triphosphate. Tri means 3. Now we are coming and discussing these triphosphate and the structure of the ATP. ATP is composed of 3 groups. 3 groups we have in ATP. The first one is adenine. What is adenine? Adenine is a kind of organic base or hydrogenous base, we can say. And the second component of the or group of the ATP is ribose. Ribose is a type of carbohydrate, and we have studied the ribose in monosaccharide. Monosaccharide, 2 types of monosaccharides we had. The first type is pentose. Pentose is made from 5 carbons. So ribose is a monosaccharide, and the structure of the ribose is made from 5 carbons. So it is a type of monosaccharide sugar. And also ribose we can find in the structure of RNA. RNA is a type of nucleic acid. In nucleic acid also we can find the ribose sugar. So ATP is also made from the ribose sugar. So the second component of the ATP is ribose. And the third component or group of the ATP is phosphate group. What is that? Phosphate group. So now we simply can say that ATP is made from 3 groups: adenine, ribose, and phosphate. The phosphate, it is group. What is a phosphate? It is a group or a compound. It is made from some elements. These elements are phosphorus, oxygen, and hydrogen. So we have 3 phosphates in the structure of ATP. How many phosphates? 3 phosphates. So there are 3 phosphate groups. 3 phosphates we have in the structure of the ATP. Now if you look here, this is the structure of the ATP. 3 components or 3 groups we have. The first one is adenine. It is a type of base, hydrogenous base we can say. This is the first group. The second group is ribose sugar. Ribose means 5 carbon sugar. How many carbons do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 5 carbons we have. So it is the 5 carbon sugar. And the third group, it is the third group of the ATP. Its name is the phosphate group. Phosphate group. In phosphate group, how many phosphates do we have? We have 3 phosphates. 1, 2, 3. Now because of these 3 phosphate, it is called triphosphate. Adenosine triphosphate. These are the adenosine group, and here we have 3 phosphate. Now 2 bonds among of 3 phosphate group. How many bonds do we have between these 3 phosphate groups? 2 bonds we have. This one is the first bond, and it is the second bond. Between the phosphate groups, 3 bonds we have. These bonds have large amount of energy. Which type of energy? Chemical energy. Which type of energy these bonds have? chemical energy they have. So 2 bonds, 1, 2, 2 bonds among of 3 phosphate group, first phosphate group, second and third. 3 phosphate group, between these 3 phosphate group we have 2 bonds. These bonds have large amount of chemical energy, so they are called high energy bond. These 2 bonds are high energy bond. When a phosphate group is removed from ATP, now it is the structure of ATP. It is the structure of what? Structure of ATP. When we removed what? One phosphate group. When we removed a phosphate group from ATP, the remaining molecule is called ADP. Now we are going to remove this part and this bound. When we removed one phosphate group and one bound, what is the remaining structure? 1, 2, 2 diphosphate now we have here. So from ATP, ATP is changed to ADP. ADP means there are 2 phosphate groups, diphosphates. So the ATP is changed to ADP, and also one bond is broken down. After that, some energy is released in the activities of the cell. So this energy is the chemical energy. So ADP has lower energy than ATP. Before it was ATP. 2 bonds we had, and these are the highest energy bond, these 2. Now one bond is split or removed from the ATP. The ATP is changed to or converted to ADP. Now ADP doesn't have that much high energy which ATP has. So we can say when a phosphate group is removed from the ATP, the remaining molecule is ATP. So ADP has lower energy than ATP. ADP we have lower energy than ATP. Why? Because there are 2 phosphate groups in two bonds between the phosphate groups in the ATP, but in ADP we have just 1 bond, and this 1 bond has lower energy than ATP. So here we can see that ATP is splitting into ADP and 1 phosphate group. After that we can get some chemical energy. If we want to get ATP from ADP, we have to write like this: ADP plus phosphate group. After that we can get what? ATP. So these types of reactions in which the phosphate is in transportation, these type of reactions are called transphosphorylation reaction. So it was your it is your today's lesson. If you have got any question, you can ask in the WhatsApp group. Have a good time.